Welcome to Kickstarter Connection. I'm Kevin Delp.
And I'm Melissa Delp.
And we're happy to be part of the Tantrum House family. Today we are looking at Antidote from Bellwether Games. It is a deduction game that was successfully funded back in 2014. And later in the video, we're going to be looking at the Lab Alliance expansion, which is coming to Kickstarter in March.
Now, in Antidote, players are scientists that are working in a lab studying a deadly airborne toxin. When a vial of the toxin breaks, you have to figure out which formula is the correct antidote, and then you're going to want to have some of that antidote to drink at the end of the game.
The main game has colorful toxin cards, numbered formula cards, syringes, and player reference sheets. It also has lab romance cards, ID badges, placebos, and clinical trials.
The deck is set up differently depending on how many players there are. It's all explained in the rulebook. In a 4-player game, you'd use 7 toxin cards, and then 1 through 4 of each of the matching formula cards. Basically, the number of each formula you use matches the number of players. You'll also need 2 syringes. First, you shuffle the 7 toxins face down and remove 1 without looking. This is the toxin you are trying to deduce.
Then shuffle the 2 syringe cards into the 6 toxins and then pass out 2 face down to each player. After that, shuffle the formula cards and give 7 to each player. Your hand size should be 9.
On your turn, you can do one action. You can either trade a card with another player, or you could play a syringe card from your hand. You could tell everyone to pass a card to the left or to the right, or you could force everyone to discard a card.
Now this is where things get interesting because you're trying to deduce what that hidden toxin is and keep the right formula for the end of the game, but you don't have complete information, so you're trying to glean info any way that you can.
So imagine you've been told to discard a card. When you discard formulas, you place them face up for everyone to see. Do you play something you know isn't the antidote and potentially tip off everyone else? Do you play a card you're uncertain about and try to mislead the other players? Or maybe you discard a toxin. Those go face down so others don't know what it is. Beyond just trying to stay alive, you're also trying to get points. That's what the numbers on the formulas are for.
Play keeps going around and around the table until all players only have 1 card left in their hand. Then they show their last card and reveal the hidden toxin. You want your card's color to match the toxin's color. If it does, you don't die, and hopefully you have the highest point card to win the game.
Well, usually you play 3 rounds, and whoever has the most points at the end of those wins the game. Now, in the base game, there are also several variations and expansions you can play with, things like placebos and clinical trials and ID badges. There are also lab romance cards, which add secret objectives.
The artwork is clean and simple and works very well with this game since you need to know the cards you are dealing with at just a glance or across the table. Well, enough about that base game. Let's look at what the Lab Alliance expansion brings to the table. These are prototype components. The artwork that you see is not final. Lab Alliance allows the game to go all the way up to 9 players with more toxins and antidotes. It also comes with Lab Alliance cards, double blind cards, adrenaline cards, true serum cards, and even more lab romance cards.
Let's start with the adrenaline cards. You do the normal setup, but add adrenaline and maybe quarantine cards to players' hands depending on the number of players.
The cool part of adrenaline is when the card gets discarded, you count the number of discarded adrenalines on the table and pass that many cards to the player on their right. This is okay at the beginning of the game when you have more cards, but boy, things can get dense when you have to pass 3 cards and only have 4 left in your hand.
Quarantine sort of protects you once it's down in front of you. You don't have to worry about passing cards, trading, or being the target of a syringe. But that might also mean that you're not getting as much useful information either.
I really like this addition to the game. Cards are moving all over the place, and you might even be past a toxin, which helps you deduce what's going on in the game. This adds a bunch more fun to an already good game.
Truth Serum is a mini expansion that can be played for 3 to 7 players. It's really simple. When anyone passes you a Truth Serum card, you must answer the next yes or no question you are asked truthfully. Anyone could ask you, but normally it's the player who just passed you the Truth Serum card.
The final expansion in the box allows the game to be played up to 9 players. Instead of playing individually, you play on teams. In an 8-player game, there are 4 teams of 2, and in a 9-player game, there are 3 teams of 3. Another difference is that you lay a group of cards face up in the middle of the table to form a supply cabinet. You can trade for these cards.
The trading is also a little different. If you want to have a one-to-one trade with your teammate in an 8-player game, it's more like the everyone trade option. So each teammate would trade. In a 9-player game, if you want to trade, you would do either left or right, and then the teammates trade. So you're going to pass one card to one teammate and then get a card from your other teammate.
The rest of the game is played normally. At the end of the round, you add up the positive points and maybe negative points of your whole team. And after 2 rounds, whichever team has the highest number of points wins the game.
The double blind variation is another way to form alliances, but you don't actually know who is on your team until the end of the game. Everyone begins the game with a double blind color. Now you can't show your card to anyone, but you can say anything you want about your card to others.
Now, not only are you trying to figure out the toxin, but you're trying to figure out your true teammates. Because at the end of the round, you reveal the double blind cards, and the teammates add up their bonus points. Those are now your points for the round, and you deal out the double blind cards again and start a new round.
The double blind definitely adds a twist into the game, but it's not necessarily my favorite way to play. Overall, we've introduced Antidote to several different gaming groups and they've all enjoyed it. We've added in some of those expansions and they were able to understand those and they fit seamlessly into the gameplay.
Wow, what can I say? This isn't just one expansion, this is multiple expansions that you're getting. I think Adrenaline is probably my favorite, but you're going to have to order it to decide for yourself. Check out the Antidote, the Lab Alliance expansion coming to Kickstarter in March.